Welcome in yet again for another video. This time we're going over the top 24 rankings for Dynasty right now pre-draft. It's important to go over these guys and see how we first have these guys ranked, how do the draft turns out, where do players fall, and does it make people go up the draft board, go down the draft board, and just kind of what's all going together. And we're going to break this down today. I'm going to show you guys who currently my top 24 Dynasty rankings are, as long as we can kind of get through this before the NFL draft, rock and rolling. And I'm sure these rankings may change after the NFL draft based on landing spots. But without further ado, let's go over our number one player for Dynasty right now, and that's Justin Jefferson. He's a 23-year-old wide receiver who is probably the best in the game currently right now. You can't really go wrong. Even in Dynasty startups, a lot of times he will be the 101. And you can't really go wrong with that. Right now, you could probably trade Justin Jefferson and get almost any piece you possibly can with that. Now, let's talk about this as far as we extrapolate this down. Justin Jefferson currently right now could be the number one, but let's face it, Kirk Cousins is getting a little older in the tooth. So when he loses Kirk Cousins, if they're not able to either get another veteran in there or some are a high draft capital quarterback, Justin Jefferson could be seeing his numbers fall just a little bit here in the near future. But as of right now, Justin Jefferson is by far the number one wide receiver in Dynasty right now, especially only being 23 years old. He's got a lot of good football left in him, and if you have him on your team, you are extremely excited. Let's move over to number two, another 23-year-old wide receiver. We're talking about Jamar Chase, just as electric as Justin Jefferson is, but he might have the longer longevity. So in Dynasty Startup, if you went Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson, I wouldn't be mad at you, because Jamar Chase has Joe Burrow at quarterback, two young duos right there who's going to be going up the ranks for years to come. So with Jefferson having a little bit of question mark at quarterback with Kirk Cousins, I wouldn't be mad if you personally ranked Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson. Right now, I think just Jefferson has a little bit more on the talent side as of right now, so I've got to put him at number one. But depending on what happens with Kirk Cousins in the next couple of years, you can definitely see Jamar Chase most likely jump into that number one spot as well. But both these guys are 23 years old. Both these guys have tons of football left in them. You can't really go wrong with one at one and one at two. It's just how it is. But we're going to go ahead and talk about the number three person right now. At 21 years old, we're talking about rookie Bijan Robinson. And again, like I said, these rankings are coming out prior to the NFL draft, so we really don't know the landing spot of Bijan Robinson right now. But I don't really think it matters where his landing spot is. Wherever he goes, he will end up being the guy, whether it's this year or next year. He's got the talent. He's one of the best running backs I have ever seen come out of college. A lot of people are talking about they're seeing shades of LaDainian Tomlinson. If anybody knows anything about LaDainian Tomlinson, when he played football, he was the number one by far running back that everybody wanted to go to for fantasy football. And Bijan Robinson could be that guy, and that's what we see. And that's what lands him at number three, especially at 21 years old. He's extremely young. And if you have a win now type of team, if you have the 101 in rookie drafts, Bijan Robinson's your guy. If you're in a startup draft, I've seen people take him anywhere from between 101 all the way down to the 105. It doesn't matter. Within the first few picks, you're taking Bijan Robinson, because let's face it, Robinson is an amazing prospect, and no matter what team he ends up on, he's going to be a nice asset for your football team. Let's go ahead and move on down to number four, and we're going to talk about Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, still a young gun. Last year didn't have as much success as we would like. He had a little bit of injury problem, but 2 years ago he was the main man. I know he probably burnt a lot of people because he was the number one draft pick in many people's leagues, especially in Dynasty startups or whatever the case was, and he just burnt people. But I think he's going to come back. They're going to have a nice rookie quarterback, should be a high draft capital. As long as he's able to produce at a high level, Jonathan Taylor should be able to produce at a high level. The way he runs is immaculate. I know a lot of people probably have him a little lower on their startup rankings or dynasty rankings, but I do like Jonathan Taylor for 2023. Now we're moving on to number 5. Let's go over another 23-year-old wide receiver and talk about CeeDee Lamb. He's young, he's building that rapport with Dak Prescott, and I believe that it's just going to get better and better as time comes. They got the old veteran and Brandon Cooks on the other side of him, should help him out quite a bit, but it looks like CeeDee Lamb will be the main go-to guy for the years to come for the Dallas Cowboys. And if you're starting up a dynasty league and you're in maybe the earlier to mid round, CeeDee Lamb could be a great pick for you, especially at 23 years old. He's kind of that next cream of the crop as far as wide receivers go. And if you want somebody that's going to be consistent with you, especially if you're in a half PPR, full PPR league, CeeDee Lamb is a great option. You can't go wrong with CeeDee. So let's move it on along to number 6 and talk about a 25-year-old wide receiver. And we're going to talk about A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, maybe a couple years older, but he's still young enough to be a good dynasty asset. Just found out that now not just found out, but he just now been with the Eagles for his first year, and he did well with Jalen Hurts being his friend. So it's one of those things, if you end up in the mid rounds and you end up having to settle for AJ Brown as your first pick in a dynasty startup, it's all good to go. If you see AJ Brown in your leagues right now, try to go trade for this guy. This guy is a beast when it comes to the football field. He loves to score touchdowns. He likes those big chunk plays. You can't go wrong with AJ Brown on your roster. Let's go ahead and talk about the next guy here. We're talking about at number 7, we're going over the 21-year-old Breece Hall. And again, he's up there with the Bijan take for me. He is one of the best running backs in the league and still only 21 years old. Now that this is dynasty, I know he's coming off a devastating knee injury, but I think he's going to end up being healthy. He's going to be a stud. If this was a redraft league, I have him, if you've seen my redraft rankings that came out a few days ago, Breece Hall's kind of lower in my rankings because in a redraft league, we're not sure what we're going to get out of him this year, but the future is so bright for Breece. So if we're talking a dynasty format, Breece Hall's definitely up at number 7 for me, especially only being 21 years old. He should recover from that knee injury and be a beast for your fantasy team for years to come. Let's go ahead and go on to the next guy at number 8, a 24-year-old wide receiver, and that's going to be Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is an absolutely phenomenal wide receiver. The way he runs his routes is smooth. Tyreek Hill even said that he might only be playing another 3 or 4 years. Jalen Waddle will then become the number 1 wide receiver, and as long as Tua can stay out of the concussion protocol, he should grow with Tua, and that should be electrifying. So even right now with Tyreek Hill on the field, Jalen Waddle is a phenomenal fantasy player, and only being at 24 years old, you can't go wrong with Jalen Waddle if you're at the back end of the first round of a startup, or if you just have him on your team in your dynasty league. You are happy that you have Jalen Waddle. Let's go at number 9 here, talk about a 22-year-old wide receiver. We're going to talk about Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson started showing flashes as a rookie last year with no quarterbacks. He did what he was able to do with no quarterbacks. And I'm going to say it one more time. He did what he was able to do with no quarterbacks. And this year, now he is rumored, it didn't happen as of right now of me shooting this video, but Aaron Rodgers should be the quarterback for the New York Jets next season. And if that happens, oh my gosh, you can possibly see Devontae Adams type numbers with Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback. So Garrett Wilson, I do like him. If you're in the back end or early second round, normally you can see Garrett Wilson start to go. I've even seen him in midway of the first round, just depending on how you value Garrett Wilson. But I think Wilson's a very good target for your fantasy team. And I think just depending on how his future is kind of envisioned right now, he could be cream of the crop, top 3 type of player in Dynasty in just a few years. So let's go ahead and move on to the next guy we're talking about at number 10, Christian McCaffrey. Now this is kind of the first time we're getting to a little bit older. He's a 26-year-old running back. Christian McCaffrey still a very good running back. He is probably the best running back for 2023. But the problem is you have a few things. 26 years old, so he's a little bit older, and he's got this little injury prone label that we do have to worry about. So not only if you are in a win now type of mindset and you're in a startup draft and you want to win now, Christian McCaffrey is a good running back to go with. If you are in a dynasty league and you are one piece away, you just need that running back, go get Christian McCaffrey because you could probably get him a little bit on the cheaper end. But Christian McCaffrey right now, 26 years old. He's not the spring chicken anymore, but he can definitely get the job done. One of the best running backs in the NFL. Let's go on to the next pick, another 26-year-old running back. We're going to go at number 11, Saquon Barkley. Barkley came back last year with a vengeance. He showed why he is one of the best running backs in the league. The problem is 26-year-old running back. So that's why I got him down here at number 11. But if you can get Saquon Barkley on your roster, I mean, I've seen people who draft in a startup league. You got Chris McCaffrey in the first round, Saquon Barkley in the second round. You went 1-2. You've got two studs at running back, but that kind of funnels you into a position where you have to win now. You can't get really, really young because you need people that can produce for you right now. So Saquon Barkley is still a great running back. He is the focal point of the Giants offense. He runs all over the field, and he's very proficient in doing that. So that's why I have him at number 11. Number 12, we have even a younger running back here, somebody that I like, very electric, 22 years old, and that's Kenneth Walker. He is now the number 1 running back for the Seattle Seahawks. Now that Rashad Penny has gone to the Eagles, now they have Kenneth Walker running the ball, and I think he's going to do very, very well, toting the rock 20 plus times a game. He's a young guy. He was a rookie last year, somebody who could be a cornerstone for your offense. I love Kenneth Walker and what he can do. His talent is there. As he grows, he should get even better. Let's go ahead and move it on now to number 13. We're going to go over our first tight end. That's at 27 years old, Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, I think, is solely dependent on Lamar Jackson coming back. I do think Lamar Jackson ends up back with the Ravens as of right now recording this. He hasn't been back with the Ravens yet, but let's just face it, I think they're going to get a deal done, and he loves to hyper target Mark Andrews. Still at 27 years old, I think he's still got quite a few years left in the tank. I think he would be a very good asset for your dynasty team if you're able to pick him up. So let's talk about the next guy at number 14. We're talking about a running back here, Travis Etienne, 24 years old. He started very slow in his seasons. Year 1, he was hurt, didn't get to play much, came in season 2, and he's playing really well. He is the main focal point of the running game for the Jaguars right now. He's friends with Trevor Lawrence. They have that rapport already from college when they played together in Clemson. Right now, it's just if you can grab Travis Etienne, if you haven't got a running back and you have to force yourself to have a running back 1, be Travis Etienne. I don't think you can. That's not kind of worst case scenario for you, right? I mean, it's just, you're not that mad if he's your starting running back on your dynasty team. He can get the job done. He's not one of those prolific type of running backs where it's like a definite stud, but he can get the job done. He can get your catching passes. He can run up the field. He can run in the middle. He can run on the outside. He can get it done for you for your dynasty team. So let's move on to the next pick. We're going to go at number 15, a wide receiver that I really like, and that's going to be T. Higgins. T. Higgins, 24-year-old wide receiver. He's a year older than Jamar Chase, but they got two nice studs out there with Joe Burrow throwing you the ball. T. Higgins, a lot of times, he outproduces Jamar Chase on some weeks that in the regular season. So it's not always the Jamar Chase 1A and then you got 1B and T. Higgins. T. Higgins sometimes is the 1A and Jamar Chase is the 1B. So if you can pick up T. Higgins in the second round or so of a startup dynasty draft, or if you have a possibility of going to try to get T. Higgins, grab him up. He's a very good asset, good dynasty asset to have on your fantasy football team, and I really like what he can provide for you for fantasy point wise. Let's go ahead and move on down to yet another one. We're going to talk about tight end Kyle Pitts. He's a 22 years old, coming at number 16 on my dynasty rankings right now, and it's purely based on his athletic profile. Right now for the Atlanta Falcons, they just don't know how to use this guy, but I'm telling you, Kyle Pitts came out, he was absolutely electric. That's why he was drafted in the NFL draft so high. He's got the speed, he's got the height, he's got the hands, he's got everything and all the tools needed to be a solid fantasy football producer. He just needs a quarterback to get him the ball. Is Desmond Ridder the answer? We don't know. I guess those answers will be solved today or this season in 2023. But I do like Kyle Pitts. I like the talent. The problem is right now when you have him on your team, he just doesn't show up. You know, he could easily get you a zero burger, and it's, you know, it is what it is with Kyle Pitts. So, you know, it's feast or famine with him right now. If you get him on your team, he ends up being a stud. Even at 22 years old, he has plenty of time to develop. That's why he is so high at number 16 on my list right now. I think the talent will ultimately win out, and he could be a stud for your dynasty team. Let's talk about right now at number 17. We're going with Stephon Diggs. A little bit older. He's a 29-year-old wide receiver, but he can still get the job done. I like his talent, and I like, even though he's 29 years old, I would select him over some other receivers like Chris Olave or Devontae Smith, just based on the talent alone and the team that he plays on. Not much else to say about Stephon Diggs. He is the main go-to guy. They throw it to him on first down, for touchdowns in the red zone. It doesn't matter. Stephon Diggs is the man. I love his target share, and you should be able to get plenty of years of production from Stephon Diggs if you take him in your Dynasty League. But that does lead us to the next guy at number 18, and that's going to be Chris Olave for the New Orleans Saints. 22-year-old wide receiver, was a rookie last season. Started out a little bit slow. Once he started catching on to the plays and he started developing some type of rapport with Andy Dalton, he was actually showing you why he was drafted so high and why the Saints drafted and traded so much away to go grab Chris Olave. Now with Derek Carr, I think Chris Olave can be even more electric. I really do like him for the 2023 season. So let's move on to the next guy. Move at number 19, 24-year-old wide receiver Devonta Smith. Now again, he's kind of overshadowed by AJ Brown, but he has his games. There's some games that AJ Brown really doesn't get much. He's less than 8 points in a game, and then Devonta Smith comes up there and he can grab you 15, 20 points. Devonta Smith is a nice, good, young asset for Jalen Hurts to throw to. I love Devonta Smith in 2023. We're moving right along here. Let's go ahead and go over to my number 20 right now, and that's going to be Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill coming in at 29 years old. And the reason why I even dropped him a couple more spots, I had Tyreek a little bit higher, but I dropped him once he started talking about this retirement talk. Not only is he 29 years old, he's already naming his retirement in a couple years. If you're in a dynasty startup, you really don't want to have to deal with that. So I dropped him down in my rankings down here to number 20. In my redraft rankings, I believe he's in the top 5. If you haven't seen the video, go back and see the video I posted a couple days ago, and I talk a little bit about Tyreek Hill and the blazing speed that he has and the talent that he can produce for your fantasy team. My problem is that if you're in a dynasty startup, you don't need to be picking a 29-year-old wide receiver who is already talking about retirement. You're setting yourself up for failure for years to come. So I dropped him down to 20th. If you can end up grabbing him later on in the early parts of the draft, I think you got a steal. But I wouldn't take, first 3 to 4 rounds. I'm not taking Tyreek Hill. If he falls past that, I'll consider taking him at that point, but not in dynasty. So let's talk about number 21. We have another one, 29-year-old wide receiver, and that's Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp coming off of an injury. He had a couple injuries also last year, but he's got all the talent to make it work. The thing is Matthew Stafford. So Matthew Stafford may come back this year, may play great. Cooper Kupp's going to have a great season. If Matthew Stafford retires after that, then who's throwing to Cooper Kupp? So then you already have a 29-year-old wide receiver with no quarterback. I don't want to be in that situation. So just like Tyreek Hill, yeah, he's going to be great for 2023. But when Dynasty, you've got to start thinking about years to come. You can't think about the now right now. You've got to set yourself up for success to win now, but you have to set yourself up for success to win in the long haul. You don't want to just have one championship and just be a turd for the rest of the time, So just kind of think these things through. That's why I'm dropping Cooper Kupp down to 21 in my ranking. So moving on to 22, we have Josh Jacobs, running back at 25 years old. The question you have to ask yourself, was last year the real Josh Jacobs? Or in 2023, will he turn back into what he was before and just was a little bit on the irrelevant side? We don't know. That's why I don't want to put Josh Jacobs too high on my rankings just based off of last year. He was the leading NFL rusher last season, but I still put him down here at 22. He's still on a little bit on the younger side at 25 years old, but we just don't know what we're going to get out of him. And if you spend a high draft capital on Josh Jacobs and he ends up going flat on you, you just wasted a draft pick for no reason. So it's kind of a wait and see approach for Josh Jacobs. If you can get him at a value spot, I don't mind him, but I just don't want you to spend a high draft capital on Josh Jacobs in a startup draft, and is not something I would necessarily go out and target right now. Right now his value is very, very high, so I would wait until he has a couple down weeks and then try to go trade for him if you do like Josh Jacobs and want him on your team. Let's go ahead and move over to number 23. Right now, we're going to another 23-year-old wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. I really do like this wide receiver. I think Jameson Williams will start to cut in to his production once he comes back from his suspension, because Jameson Williams got suspended for betting on some games when he was at one of the facilities. So he'll be out for, I think he had a 5 or 6 game suspension. And then when he comes back, I think he's going to start eating away of some of Amon-Ra St. Brown's production. I think he's still a really good receiver. He's still got the talent. I just don't know how Jameson Williams is going to eat into that production. So I don't want to put Amon-Ra St. Brown up there where a lot of people have him in the top 10. I'm not just going to do that. I don't do like the cookie cutter type of approach with my rankings. I try to use my logic and my analysis and give you guys a rankings based on what I believe could happen, not only for 2023, but for years to come. So let's go ahead and go over our last guy today. We're going over a 25-year-old wide receiver in DK Metcalf. I really like DK Metcalf. The problem is we've got some questions we have to talk about. Is Geno Smith going to be the same quarterback this year as he was last year? You know, Geno Smith, for the first time in his career, threw for so many yards. You know, he's only thrown for over 3,500 yards one time in his entire career. And I believe that was his rookie season. So we don't want to sit here and say, oh, he's got Geno Smith, he's going to be a good fantasy output guy. We got to see who's coming in after Geno Smith. Geno Smith might only play 1 more year, maybe 2 more years. What if they get a rookie quarterback in there? We just don't know. So I don't want you guys spending this high draft capital in a startup draft on a player that possibly could be irrelevant in a couple years, depending on if he stays with this team. So, but other than that, that's just a quick rundown. I thought it'd be fun to go over my top 24 rankings currently right now, pre-draft for Dynasty football. But we've got a lot of videos coming out here. Guys, hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. If there's somebody that didn't make it in my top 24, if you believe somebody should be a little bit higher, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of players that you guys believe are higher. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I can't wait to have this conversation with you guys. But other than that, can't wait to see you guys on the next video. We'll see you guys next time.